guys, welcome to my Valentine's Day look. So to start off, I wanted to use something really glowy as my primer, so I'm using the e.l.f. Halo Glow Filter, just applying that everywhere. To blend it, I'm going to use the e.l.f. double-ended complexion brush. Using a brush isn't usually my favorite application method just because it can leave brush marks, but just to kind of like spread it out quickly, depending on the product, it can work out pretty well. This is a pretty glowy product, so depending on your skin type, if you have a lot of texture, this may not be ideal. I was having a pretty good skin day for the most part, so. And then I'm just pressing that in with my hands just to make sure I don't have any of those brush marks that I was talking about. Make sure everything's evenly blended. And then I've recently fallen back in love with the Bare Minerals, just their original foundation. It is a loose powder foundation. This used to be my exclusive foundation for like years and years and years. So what you do is you swirl it in the lid, you tap it off, and then you buff it into the skin. I love this makeup because it has never broken me out. You can get buildable coverage. And if you were to put the powder in between your fingers and rub it together, it almost turns into like a creamy texture, which is super unique. I'm going to be doing a comparison video to another foundation here pretty soon, comparing this foundation to a less expensive one, because this is not a cheap foundation. Like, it's pretty expensive. Like, the regular size is like $30, but it does give you just a really unique finish, I will say, compared to like other foundations. Now, when you would first buy this back in the day, you would get 3 steps. You would get the foundation, you would get the bronzing powder, and maybe a blush, I don't remember, and then like the mineral veil, which is like a translucent powder. I don't have any of those anymore. All I have left is the foundation at this point, just because I'm not a huge powder person, and I feel like any translucent powder will do. So here I do have some breakouts and cystic acne on my neck, so I'm working that into that area as well. But this foundation is really good at minimizing pores. I have recently tried to use this under my eyes as a concealer as well, and it does still crease, so I would recommend potentially maybe also setting that area with a powder. And yeah, so the good thing about this foundation and what I really like about it is the fact that like you can use this in more than one way. So obviously you can buff into the skin as a foundation. I remember when I first got this, they said buff till you're bored. But they also sell these smaller little concealer brushes. I have 2 of these. They are a bit expensive, but I've had these brushes for years. And that other, like the bigger brush, the kabuki brush, I've had that for years too. So they really do last. They have held up, like, I would say over 10 years I've had these brushes. So you just wash them, dry them just like normal, and then they're good to go. So as you can see here, I'm using this to spot conceal. And I just kind of do the same thing and just swirl it and buff it in just like you do with like the big brush, just in smaller areas. And I found that this works really well. I've used this even in the past, like if I was using a liquid foundation, I would still use this as a concealer, because honestly, I've never found anything that covers as well or as naturally for like acne as this does. So if you have acne prone skin, or like I said, large pores, or you know, maybe even more mature skin, I think this could be a really good option. If you have more like oily skin that breaks through stuff, you know, a lot, this may not be as ideal, but I mean, I don't have oily skin, so I can't really speak to that. Am I the only one that ever spot conceals all over their body? I'll do it on my arms if I have breakouts on my arms or my back. If I'm wearing like tank tops, or yeah, like on my chest, I'll get them sometimes. But I'll cover anything. Just touching up any little redness there. Okay, now we're going in with my favorite under eye concealer, which is Charlotte Tilbury. As you can see, I have definitely hit pan on this. I'm getting near the bottom, which is good. Normally I would do this with my finger, but I do have fake press-on nails at the moment, which can make it difficult to kind of like get in there and blend it as well or apply it as well. So I've been trying to use the concealer brush a bit more just to make that a little bit easier. But I mean, nothing warms it and presses it into your skin quite like your finger, so I still recommend that method. But the brush is good if you need more coverage. You're going to get a higher coverage by using the brush just because you don't have your finger like taking it off. So I'm a perfectionist in particular about my under eyes, so I do always devote probably the most attention to that. It's just an area of insecurity for me to have that blue veining and those dark under eye circles. I've had people make comments in the past, you know, asking questions if I, you know, got enough sleep, if I'm sick, if I'm tired, if I've had ink on my face. Like, I've had too many people make comments, so I have always really tried to cover that. And out of all of the products, like I've tried everything, like concealer galore, like I would pack on the concealer. I've tried like really orangey under eye correctors. This one I love because I don't feel like I need a concealer on top of this. So most under eye correctors, you apply it and then you would apply a concealer on top. So it's an extra step, it's an extra product, and it can also add like that extra layer can add cakiness, which is unflattering. So for me, if you can find a product that you only need like one of, that's what I would do. So like for me, I apply this, get it how it looking how I want, and then I will lightly set it with a translucent powder, and that's it. That's all I do. And it's been enough for me that's all I've needed. Here I'm checking it from like different angles, different lighting, because if you see from different angles, you can see the darkness like from different areas. So I just always double check everything to make sure that it is exactly how I want it. And then here I'm just using, it's a number 7 compact translucent powder. I just use a really fluffy brush, tap off the excess, and then I pull the skin down just to make sure I don't have any creasing, and then I just lightly, very lightly, like press that in, because you don't want to apply more powder than necessary because it will create like cakiness, or it'll make like your under eyes look dry, and like that's not a good look. So just use as little like powder as you can get away with. And then here I'm just kind of going over any like little problem areas or areas that might have pores, or you know, that could have some breakthrough, stuff like that. So I'm going over like the pores on like my cheeks and my nose. Just kind of buffing that in with what's already there. And then I think when I buffed, I kind of like noticed there was a spot that wasn't super well blended, so just touching that up as we go. Applied too much product there, so I'm removing the product, applying just a little dab more just on that one spot, because I don't like my makeup to look cakey. So just blending that in. I think I was noticing it was in my pores a little bit. Now, as Bob Ross says, there are no mistakes, just happy accidents. So we're just tweaking as we go along, making sure everything looks how we want it to. As you can see, this foundation is very buildable and it makes a great concealer. Okay, good with that for now. Back to our translucent powder, just touching that up because we don't want that to get, you know, broken up later. Going over our chin. And then I'm sure, yep, T-zone. Okay, now we're moving on to this LA Color Contour and Highlight Palette. I just got this from Dollar General whenever I got the Believe Beauty products. I'd seen this and I like the tones in it because they're very cool toned and they were also very light. Because sometimes when you get contour products or products like that, they can be really dark. And when you're as fair as me, you don't always want a really, really dark product. Like, I can make them work by just using less, but products like this where they're really light to begin with, they can be good because you don't have to worry so much about like overdoing it. So I go along my hairline. I like to kind of blend that in. As you saw, I went along my cheeks as well. I always do a pretty good focus on my widow's peak up there and along my temples. That's usually where I focus any contour or bronzer. If you guys would like a more in-depth explanation about the difference between bronzer and contour, I can do that. There's a lot of videos out there about the differences. Basically, what it sums up to be is bronzer is warm tone, contour is cool tone, and they have different functions. Contour is used to create shadows, bronzer is used to bring warmth to the face. So there you go. I guess I did explain it. But so here I'm going along my jawline and down my chin, just because we want to make sure we don't have any like double chin looking areas. This is a really good contour for the nose because it is so light. It's good to contour the nose without making it look too overly done, too overly contoured. Just adding a bit more to the cheeks. I like my cheekbones to look really, really sculpted. Okay, now we're moving on to one of my favorite blushes, which is the Love Dive blush. I don't remember the shade. It's the hot pink one. It's from She Glam. But this one, I would say, is probably one of my favorite blushes in my collection. It's very similar to the Dior Rosy Glow blush. The difference is this one is a matte blush versus the Dior Rosy Glow blush has a little bit of reflect in it. So it's not completely matte. And then when I do my blushes, I typically like to take it all the way up to my temple. As you saw there, just a little bit. Depends on the look that I'm going for. Sometimes I'll just place it higher up on the cheeks. Sometimes I'll do it just on the apples of my cheeks. Sometimes I'll go all the way up to the temple. I'll do the whole cheek, the whole, you know, apples, higher up, the temple, everything. Just depends on the look that I'm going for. If I'm going for more of like that, you know, sun-kissed, like, you know, been outside all day kind of look, or what. Here, I really kind of want it to be a little bit more rosy. So I'm putting it more everywhere just because it is a Valentine's Day look. So I feel like it's kind of called for. Just adding a little bit more, making sure that they both look even on either side. You don't want to have more blush on one side than the other. Oh, and then I just disrupted that blemish again, so I'm going back in with my concealer brush, trying to touch that up again. Me blending over, you saw me swirling and blending it in. Okay, now we're just gonna try to not blend, but just tap to cover that up. There we go. Good enough. So now we have to make sure the other side is even. Okay. Is it good? Did we even it out now? I think I was just blending in my pores there a little bit. Okay. What do we think? A little more? Good enough. All right, now we're moving on to eyebrows. You'll get to see my full eyebrow routine. I don't usually show all of this. I like to kind of edit it and crop it out because it can be kind of a lot. I'm picky about my eyebrows too. So here I'm starting with the e.l.f. Precision brush, which is like the skinnier brush. I'm probably in taupe. If I had to guess the shade, I usually go with taupe. It's a cool tone brown. As you'll notice, the theme in my makeup is pretty much always cool tone because that flatters my skin tone. So here I'm just kind of like tracing the outline of my brow shape that I want to create. A good tip that has really helped me to improve my brow game was there's a filter on TikTok, and I think it's literally like called eyebrows, and what it does is it will map out how your eyebrow shape should look. Okay, so now we're moving on to the felt tip pen. This is where you can draw in like hair-like strokes and like kind of create brow hairs, if you will. So now we have our shape. Now we're filling it in and creating hair-like strokes. But anyways, that filter, it will map out like how far in your eyebrows should go, like towards your nose, where the arch should be, where the tail should end. Again, it's not like an end-all be-all, but it'll get you pretty close. And like if you want to make sure that your eyebrows are coming in far enough, it's great for that. I actually use that like partway through my video. You'll see I'll kind of cut, but I mean, I just double check it to make sure that I did a good job on my brows, basically. Because so many times I'll think that I'm good, and then I'll check the filter, and it's like, no, you need to come in further. So, but yeah, here I'm just creating those brow strokes. If you ever do too dark like I did there, you can just use the spoolie to kind of blend out any like harsh spots, basically. And then you can take that same concealer brush that we used earlier and just clean up anything, you know, that should come outside basically of that traced shape, that traced line. Here we're just touching that up. Making sure that the shape, you know, that we had is still intact. Now you can see the difference between like the brow that is done compared to the brow that isn't. I always joke and I call my eyebrows shrimp brows. So I have had them microbladed as well. I had them microbladed one time and then refilled in another time. It was super painful. I'm gonna level with you. Like, I don't know that I would ever spend that amount of money again for it to hurt as bad as it did. And then it also didn't last a long time on me. Like, they say that it can last up to like 2 years, but for me it didn't even last one. Like within, I would say like 6 months I needed to have it redone, like filled in again, and then within a couple of months after that, like it's pretty much gone, I would say, at this point. So I've considered getting my brows done again with like a different technique that isn't microblading. Because I would like something, like if I'm going to go through all that pain, I would like it to last longer. And I mean, it was not a cheap procedure. I probably spent over $400 like getting my brows done. So I don't know. For now, I'm comfortable just doing my brows at home, you know, with this method. I'm happy with that. So here I am. I'm just cleaning up. I don't know why this brow, it's my left eyebrow, is so much more difficult than the other one. I feel like we always have one eyebrow that is like our good eyebrow that always cooperates, you know, always looks perfect the first try. And then you have the other brow, which is your problem child. And this brow is definitely my problem child. I don't know why, but every time, yeah, as you can see, every time I try to do something with this brow, it's like it wants to act up. It's never quite as perfect as the other one. But as the saying goes, they're sisters, not twins. In some cases, they're cousins. So, I mean, as long as you get them pretty close, you know, I don't think anyone's going to fault you. People, you know, our brows are naturally imperfect from one another. But we do want to try to get as close as possible, of course, because if you're like me, you're a perfectionist. So here I really got it too dark. So I'm brushing it up and down and taking some off. Okay. And we're just using our pencil again just to make sure that that shape is how we want it. Doing a little cleanup. Making sure the little tails in the front are kind of similar. As you can see, that one was a little bit more angled, so I'm just drawing it up a little bit more. Yep. And then, like I said, I'll double check this with that TikTok filter just to make sure as well that the front pieces are, you know, lined up the way that they need to be. Okay, looks good. All right, now we're going on to our eyeshadow primer. This is actually a pretty inexpensive one. I've been using it since I've gotten it. I really liked it. It's from Temu. I want to say I spent like less than $3 on this eyeshadow primer. I like it for the color. They had different colors. They had like a pink tone one. They had one that was a lot more like pure white. They had deeper tone ones as well. But I liked this one because I wanted it lighter so that my eyeshadows would pop on it a bit more. But I didn't want a pure white one either because I thought that might be a little too unnatural, a little too stark. So this one works great. It helps prevent like creasing in my eyeshadow. You do, like as you see, I'm kind of angling my head back here so that my eyelids don't open fully because it can cause creasing, at least with my hooded eyes, with eyeshadow primers. So here I'm using this eyeshadow palette I got from Aldi's. It's the Lacura. It's like the natural, you'll see like the pink, like rosy toned eyeshadow palette. I think this is a dupe for Urban Decay. It even has a similar brush as Urban Decay. This eyeshadow palette was like $4. It was really inexpensive, but it has performed really well. When I first got it, I thought maybe it was going to be a little too warm toned for me, but it actually has grown on me the more that I've used it. So what I'm doing here is I'm choosing kind of more of a lighter, almost skin tone shade just to set that eyeshadow primer, because we don't want any creasing, basically, is like our goal. That's why I was saying you don't want to blink too hard as well when you're setting your eyeshadow primer, because that can cause creasing as well, which can interfere with your eyeshadow look. So here we're just setting it. Putting it all over the lid. With this one, I'm not super like precise or anything. You know, I'm not going to worry about blending it super like hardcore. Just putting it all over so we have a nice base basically, because this will get covered up. On the topic of eyeshadow primers, I've tried a few different ones. I've tried the actual Urban Decay primer potion. That one is great if you do not want your eyeshadow makeup to budge. It needs to last all day. Okay, so now I'm switching to the fluffy side of the brush and moving into a deeper tone. So this is a deeper matte tone here. It's similar to the first shade, just, you know, a little bit darker because we want to start building that dimension on the outer corner. But anyways, as I was saying, I didn't like the Urban Decay Primer Potion because I found like it made your eyeshadows, even if you had really, really blendable eyeshadows, it made them difficult to work with because they just wanted to cling to that eyeshadow primer. Like, granted, it does not budge. Like, your eyeshadow will stay all day, all night. Like, it's not going anywhere. It's like a glue. But the downside to that is it can make typically easy eyeshadows that are easy to work with more difficult because they don't want to blend. So I like this one. I also like the e.l.f. one. It comes in like a little tube with a wand. Just because they offer a little bit of coverage and they do help with the longevity and help prevent creasing, but not like to the same level as the Urban Decay Primer Potion. So it just depends on your preference. I like a little more natural. I'm okay with it breaking down and wearing down after, you know, 8 hours. Like, I'm cool with that. I expect that. So just preferences. So when I do my definition on my eyeshadow, I like to take the outside bits all the way up to the tip of my brow, almost all the way to the eyebrow, but I save a little bit of room, like a little sliver. And then here I'm just cleaning up anything that might have went a little bit lower than I wanted, and also to kind of help create that like cat eye like effect. Once I go through and clean up that line, I go back through and I take the brush just to soften it because I don't want any harsh lines. Like, when I do my eyeshadow, I want it to be soft. Like, that is my goal. I want it to be soft because I think that that's the most flattering. No harsh lines. Sometimes if I'm doing a really bold eye, I'll even take it a little bit past my eyebrow. You can see a little bit there where I went past. Now I'm taking a flat brush just from e.l.f., some e.l.f. palette. And now I'm picking up like the deeper shimmer to that matte that we just used. And what I'm doing here is I am just kind of packing that like over the top in that outer corner. Normally I would probably use my finger for this, but because I have these fake nails, it does make it more difficult. So I'm just using a flat brush and I'm just kind of building that over and into that matte shadow we just put down. And then I'm just doing the same thing on the other side, just building that into that definition that we just did. And with this, I'm only taking this about halfway over my eyelid because I want to save enough room to do a lighter shade on the inside and then blend those two together. So I'm just cleaning that on a paper towel because I want to use the same brush. Okay, so now I'm going to start picking up a lighter shade. Looks like that one's called Rosy. And then we're just going to start placing that again on the inner part of the eye. I'm taking it all the way and having that meet in the middle of my eye. And then just up outside of that hood just a little bit. You want to take your eyeshadows just above where your hood is on your eyelid, because otherwise when your eyes are open, you won't be able to see it. So it is important to get above the hood. You don't have to go a lot above, but just a little bit above, which you'll see me do here. So we're getting in that inner corner. And then there I've done pretty much the whole hood, but here I'm going just above. You could see me go just above that hood, because I want you to be able to tell that I have eyeshadow on. And then we just want to blend those two shades, the lighter shade and the deeper shade that we just put down together, so that it's seamless. Now we're taking an even lighter shade, this one called Pixie, on a really teeny tiny little baby brush, and we're doing the inner corner. So this just kind of highlights it, makes your eyes look a little bit bigger. Plus it's just fun. Why not? Now with shimmer shades like that, I do blend them a little bit. As you saw, I swirled it a little bit. And then we're doing the eyebrow highlight. And then I have also been favoring doing this, which is like an underliner. So you're like highlighting the edge of that. It just brings a little bit of light to that. I don't know, it's very flattering. I really like doing that. So like I said, you can see me, I'll swirl it a little bit because I feel like it activates like the shimmer a little bit more and you can see it a little bit better. And then just along the brow bone. I don't like to do too much. I don't like a blinding like eyebrow highlight, just a touch. And then again, doing that underliner, or like, I think they call it reverse eyeliner. But I love that look. Like I could just stop there if I wanted and not even line at all and leave it like that and have it be really soft, really natural, almost ethereal kind of vibe. But for this look, I do want to do the most. So I am going to line. And I'm just lining with shadow. I like lining with shadow because, again, very soft, very natural. I find it to be more flattering and less harsh. Now the goal with this is we want to just make our lashes look a little bit fuller. Like we're not, like with a look like this, I'm not trying to show a bold liner. I just want to make my lashes look a little more doe-eyed. I'm just dragging it a little bit along the bottom. I don't do too much here because it can close off your eye a little bit. And I also just did all of that hard work to cover up my under eye. I'm not trying to make it look darker. And then I learned some of this, like the smudgy, only doing a little portion on the outside of the lashes. If you guys ever use that filter on, I think it was like TikTok, I think Snapchat has one too, but it's like that, the AI filter, whatever it was, I can't remember what it's called, but it was one of those beauty filters that was like freakishly like realistic. But it was kind of like implying that this technique here, just on the outer corner, just a little smokiness on my lashes, like looked the best, I guess, on me. And so I've kind of adopted that. Here I'm not going over that area where I did the underlining. I'm just going on top of that and then smudging just a little bit, probably on the outer half or the outer third of my lower eye. I'm not doing the whole thing. Just doing the outside. Again, just want to give a little bit of shape to the eye. Make the lashes look a little fuller. Making sure everything's even. One side's going in as far as the other. I think that looks pretty good. Oh, we need to deepen that spot. Okay. Okay, now we are curling our lashes. I just got this one off of Amazon. It was fairly inexpensive. I looked at a lot of different eyelash curlers for like their shape, because you want to find one that has a similar curvature as your natural eye. I didn't know that. I just started using an eyelash curler probably within the last like year or two. I never used an eyelash curler before that. I thought it was just an extra step. It doesn't really do that much. I have naturally pretty long lashes anyways. So for me, I was just like, what do I need an eyelash curler for? It helps a little bit, I guess. I don't always do it, but occasionally it's nice. This is also from the Lacura, like the Aldi brand. This is their mascara. It has a really neat wand. It's not my favorite formulation. I prefer a mascara formulation that is like easy to wash off. I guess like a tubing mascara, I guess is what most people call that. But I like the ones that just wash off easily and don't like create that like raccoon eye or are like really difficult. Like you have to really use like some scrubbing or soap on your eyes or like those you know, melting creams to remove it. I don't really like doing that. I feel like it's a lot of work. So I don't think I would repurchase this, but if you're a person that wants your, you know, mascara to stay on, you know, like this, it lasts all day. Like it's not budging. And I love the brush. I wish I could get this kind of brush with the little weird things on the end for the inner corner. I wish I could get that on more mascara brushes. I also don't like clumping in my mascara, so I will pinch off any little clumps. And then recently, in the last few years, I've also learned that doing 2 coats of mascara actually really makes a difference. I used to only just do like 1 good coat and leave it at that. But now I'll do a little coat and then let it dry while I do the other one and then go back in and do a second coat. And I found that that actually does make a big difference. It's kind of like when you do like nail polish and you have to do like really thin layers, thin coats. It actually makes like the outcome a lot better. So just keep that in mind. I even tested it out with Jade recently because she used to, you know, I think we all used to do that. You just put it on until it looks good. But I had her try doing, you know, the 2 coats to see if she could see a difference, and she felt like she did as well. So, oh, yep, just got it on my eyelid. That's okay. Again, there are no accidents, just happy, or no mistakes, just happy accidents. Okay, now we're going back to the other eye now that it's had time to dry, doing our second coat. And I've really been enjoying the little brush because it makes it easy to get further into the inner corner of my eye. And I've been enjoying making sure to focus on the far outer corner and the far inner corner of my eye, because I find that it makes, you know, it look like I have more lashes that way. So I've really been focusing on putting mascara in those places. And I like to make sure they're really fanned out. Here I'm just making sure that the lashes look pretty even. It looks like on the one side those lashes in the middle were sticking up a bit more, so I wanted to make sure to highlight those. Here I'm using the Lip Sense Blue Red and then the Gloss Honeysuckle. Now I have been using Lip Sense for years and years and years as well. I feel like this is one of the really like OG long lasting, like no budge, kiss proof lipsticks. Like it was around well before like the Maybelline like vinyl ink and like all of those. It is a process to put on, I will say, but it will last. It will last all day through eating and drinking. You may touch it up like on the inner part where your like waterline is, but aside from that, it's good. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just making sure my lips are really, really dry, no saliva, before I start this process because it really adheres to the lip skin. And getting the shape is important. It's kind of like how we shaped our brows before we filled it in. I'm just doing the same with my lip. I'm creating the shape and then filling it in. And similar to how, you know, we did the mascara in layers, it's a similar process. You know, just like nail polish, you do thin layers and you build it up to the opacity that you want. So if you want it a little more sheer, you can do maybe 1 or 2 layers. If you want it really, really opaque, like I'm going to be doing here, then you want to do 3 layers. And then I always make sure to like with this lipstick, I get into the waterline really, really well because it can make your lips look more full by doing that. And then you want to take your time with this portion, especially to make sure that you get your little like your little humps or whatever, even with one another. I struggle with that sometimes. And then I know some people don't do the little M, they just go over the little peak, but I, you know, want to go with how my face looks, like my natural shape. So if you have a little like M, a little peak there, I can't remember the name of what that's called, but if you have that, I mean, you know, might as well. Like embrace what makes you you, makes you different. So here I'm just filling it in, and that's coat number 1. And then, like I said, just perfecting that little M. Do it in different shapes. Like I'll make an O shape commonly to see if they look even. I do all kinds of weird faces to make sure they look even. Now we're just letting that dry down. And while the top's drying, we're going to go back on the bottom. It's easier once you have the shape done to kind of go back over everything. You don't have to be quite as careful. And I like this red because this is, the name implies, it's a blue red. So it's a blue toned red, which means it is cool toned. It is not a red toned red, which has orange in it, like a lot of reds do. So if you are cool toned, keep that in mind when picking red lipsticks. But yeah, this lipstick, it won't budge. And I love this lipstick. The reason I started using it and I bought so many of them when I first found out is because I have chronically chapped lips, especially before I started getting lip filler. Like lip filler has helped that, but I do have chronically chapped lips. Like they will always be flaky and they'll always be shedding. But when I have this on, it almost creates like a sealant on my lips and it traps in like the moisture. And my lips just don't chap as much. Or if they do chap and I'm like picking at them a little bit, I'm more likely to be picking at the lipstick than I'm picking at my actual skin. So if you have like a skin picking issue, a chapped lip issue, this could be a really good option. Okay, so we were just making sure that it was dry and going in for our 3rd layer. The final layer, we've made it. But these lipsticks can be kind of weird if you've never used them before. Like as they dry and they age, they can get a little like sheddy, kind of. Like they can shed a little bit. Like if you've had them on for like hours and hours and hours. The easiest way I found to remove these, they do have like a special like gentle remover thingy. But you have to like really work at removing, especially like darker, deeper shades like this. Just take like a little alcohol prep pad or like an alcohol pad and just wipe these off. And then when you're done, just take like a really hydrating face mask like Laneige or something like that and put that on over top like after you've taken it off, and you'll be good. Again, just checking our little M, making sure it looks even. Okay, that actually looks really good. And then we're just gonna let that dry. We're done with that now. And then we're going in with the gloss. And they have all different kinds of glosses, and you can create different effects with them. So I'm just using like a simple like red, shiny, shimmery gloss in this case because I want a red look. But I mean, they have one that's like purple, they have green ones, they even have like an opal one that creates almost like an iridescent like pearl look on your lips. You can they have matte ones, they have just clear ones. They have all different kinds of glosses, and so you can create tons of different effects on the lipsticks with those different glosses. So it's really cool. They have glitter ones and all different glitters like silver glitter, gold glitter, red glitter. I don't know, it's really cool. So they are a little expensive, but I've had these forever. Like I've had that, I think that blue red was the first one I ever bought, and it's got to be over like 5 years old, to be honest. Like it's old, but it lasts, and as long as they don't dry out, then you're good. But that looks really pretty. So now the gloss will come off, but the lipstick won't. Okay, now we're just going in with Victoria's Secret Very Sexy, the original in the red bottle perfume. Just because I thought we're doing a red look and it's like a Valentine's Day look, I want to smell like sexy, but also like go with a theme, right? Like red, sexy, that kind of thing. Okay, now we got to do hair and our outfit. Okay, and here's our finished look. Makeup is done. Hair is just in a cute ponytail with a red scrunchie and my Valentine's Day sweater. And I don't wear heels right now because of my ankle, but if I did, these would be what I'd wear. Red bottoms. This was my first YouTube video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you subscribe.